Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, critiquing Behren Morton, now with 2 starts in the freshman's rear view. Also, what does a healthy QB room finally do for the Red Raiders moving forward? And some extra emotion, familiarity within this matchup, Tech and Baylor for the Red Raider head coach. Joey McGuire on all of the above and more. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Thanks for joining us once again on Locked On Texas Tech, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Appreciate you for making us your first listen with new episodes each weekday on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode of Locked On Texas Tech brought to you by Sling TV. Sling has got something special for everyone, especially when it comes to college football coverage. Massive lineup of games across the ACC, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, SEC. You can always catch the games you want on Sling TV. Check out Sling TV now to see the massive lineup of games they're going to have all season long, beginning this weekend. Sling TV, the TV you love, for a price you'll love. Try it today. Chris, as we are beginning to set our sights on the Baylor Bears, fitting the description of the next potential victim for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders, there's really no way around the fact that there's got to be some added emotion when it comes to this matchup. With all the familiarity involved, of course, with Coach McGuire being there previously. And as he touched on to kick off the week in his weekly press conference, and we'll get to some of that sound in just a moment. I think he said like 95% of the roster he'd been a part of bringing to the campus in Waco. So I'm glad he embraced it, man, because I think it's going to make it a little bit more colorful, a little more fun this week.
Yeah, this is definitely, as we've touched on, this is definitely not the Mark Adams, Chris Beard scenario. As both of these coaches have kind of, I think there's a lot of respect here, and it wasn't an ugly divorce. It was actually, hey man, you got an opportunity, go do it. We're happy for you. But I think, yeah, I mean, Joey knows a lot of people there, and still thanks a lot of the people there. And there's some people that he's working with now that he brought from that place, which that can cause some interesting dynamics when you start, taking staff members away, which is what happened, in the process. James Blanchard and your head strength coach, is from Baylor, and James Blanchard, the head recruiting coordinator, and, various other folks that he either worked with previously or was currently working with at Baylor. But it makes for a fun storyline, and it makes for – there's a lot going on this week with the night game, the blackout, Pat Mahomes. There's a lot of elements to this one, and it's funny because I don't know how much the national media or even the regional media will make a big deal about McGuire and the Baylor kind of thing. And people are going to forget, too, Dave Aranda worked at Texas Tech back in the day, too. How about that?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And Coach McGuire may prefer it that way, not talking all that much about it within the media, because as he touched on to open up the week, clearly not something that he feels comfortable with the spotlight being on, that being himself or this storyline revolving around his ties, his history with the Baylor Bears. Here's Coach McGuire.
I told the players on Sunday, it's not about me, and I'm not the brand. I'm not the player coach's oath. I'm none of that if I make it about me, and it's just not me. I mean, there's probably 10-plus people in this building that were at Baylor that worked there last year, and I told the players, I said, man, you need to call us out if you think it is about – because at the end of the day, it's just like whenever we play Texas and after the game, I said, we went 1-0 in the Big 12. That's what we're trying to do this week. If it's anything else, then we're going to put something that really doesn't mean a whole lot in front of a team win and being 1-0 in the Big 12. And so I'm not going to be any different than what I am. That's the one thing I try to do. I've told y'all that before. It's easy to look at that pump jack out there and say, that pump jack doesn't care if it's raining or snowing or if it's sun or if we're playing Baylor, if we're playing West Virginia. It's just still going to be the same. That's what I'm going to try to do this week. And, mean, I know there's going to be nerves before the game, and I'm going to get to see a lot of buddies. And, you know, I was a part of recruiting about 95% of that roster, so I know those guys really well and care a lot about them. But at the end of the day, you know, it's just a football game in the Big 12 that we need to go win.
This is what makes him such a good coach, because he gets it. You know, he's not – and he's right. I mean, it's not about him. There will be people that will make it about that storyline. He's going to get asked about it repeatedly this week. Coach Aranda will as well. But it's really about his team that he's focused on now and the kids in his current locker room. You're just trying to get a result. You're trying to move to, you know, having a winning record in the Big 12 at 3-2 and trying to improve to 5-3 overall. And, man, I'm telling you, that pump jack thought or that, you know, example, and you know, we were introduced to that last year by Sonny Cumbie, and then Joey just kind of left it out there and taken it and ran with it. That's why that analogy is so dead on when it comes to this sport, man. That thing doesn't care. It's just working. It doesn't care what the weather's doing. It doesn't care what the opponent is. It doesn't care the time of year that it is. It's just working and trying to make money. I mean, it's grinding and all that. And that's exactly right. If this week is any different than last week, then we've failed. And that pump jack, it doesn't care what week it is. It doesn't. But I just that it's such a great analogy for football and sports in general. And I thought Joey nailed it right there. But I just think this is what makes him such a good players coach. Is he's a deflector. This isn't about him or where he's been or who he's worked with before. It's about his guys.
Yeah, and well beyond sports for the analogy, Chris. I mean, that's just life, right? Whether the market's up, whether the market's down, you're just continuing to grind. And yeah, whether the weather has changed or the team has changed or a guy's hand is in the machine. I don't know if you had family members like mine or just knew some old boys growing up around town that had to wave like this whenever you see them coming around. That old pumper lifestyle, baby. There's a reason, because it never stops. It never stops. You don't see pumpers and neckties for that reason. So I think that's so apt, and certainly apt for Texas Tech University or this region, West Texas in general. But I'm glad they continue to run with that, because I think it's a fairly simple symbol for everyone to take a look at and kind of process what he's saying there. And Chris, that's been something that has plagued. I know Texas Tech is not exclusive to this problem, but there's been plenty of that throughout at least my life as a Red Raider fan. The up, the down, the North Texas, the Oklahoma under Tommy Tuberville. Though, I mean, there's just such a mix there. And I know every team in the country is looking to be consistent and looking to repeat the good things that they do week after week after week. So I don't want to get into, well, it's typical Tech and some special curse that is like bestowed upon us. But I mean, how many times have you seen these wild swings? And so I like this latest effort to kind of attack that and say, man, let's be even keeled. Let's continue to try to do the little things that lead to those big results that will hopefully remain consistent, at least if they're successful.
Yeah, and I think to Joey and his staff's credit, this team, they have made some mistakes. They have at times not played the best or smartest, maybe just because of mistakes and turnovers, whatever. They have yet to show up and not play hard, you know, and I think that goes a long way, not just at this school, but in this part of the state. I mean, I think the fans appreciate it. And I don't know. I think I've seen enough now to I'm going to be really surprised to the flip side if they show up and just don't have it one day. That's going to really surprise if you come out flat, if you come out with no energy, or you just kind of look like you're loafing, or there's some guy. I mean, we just not seen that. And now you're 7 games in, and I just don't know if we will see it. I think that's kind of a bit of their trademark and a bit of what they've kind of, you know, their fingerprints are all over this particular team in that way, and I think that's a good thing. That's quite a compliment. And other coaches are noticing it, because other coaches are starting to talk about that when asked. Yeah. Hey man, what do you see when you look at Texas Tech on film? And that, you know, I believe them.
Well, yeah, and a valued member of the Locked On Texas Tech fam family in the YouTube comments touched on what you're getting to there. Toughest hardest working, most competitive program in the country. And I think whenever you kind of have an understanding that, hey, at minimum, that's the standard we're meeting every day, well, it's only going to lead to good things. And then what happens when the most competitive and toughest and hardest working program in the country is talented? I mean, think about combining those things. So it could be really exciting. I'm sure, Chris, there will be a letdown day, a letdown first quarter, a letdown half, or whatever it might be. They're not going to be perfect. But I think if you know you have that standard as a program within your culture to fall back on at minimum, you'll find your way back there sooner rather than later. And maybe that does translate to like, hey, it was just a quarter or just a bad start, instead of, boy, what a total goose egg of a day, at large after 4 quarters have been played. Only time will tell, but I pointed it out that I thought Matt Wells did increase the toughness as far as the culture of Red Raider football. I thought his teams played harder and were more resilient than Cliff Kingsbury's teams, and I really hoped that would be something that Coach McGuire could use to build the program. And yeah, we've seen that in all directions, so that's not a worry anymore. We've seen that hope come to fruition. Coming up dead ahead, what was just a hope not too long ago, say a trio of healthy quarterbacks, has now, rumor has it, come to fruition. We'll get to some more thoughts from head coach Joey McGuire as it relates to what a healthy QB room could do for his team now moving forward, beginning with those Baylor Bears coming up on Saturday evening at Jones Stadium. That's next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, it's back to the numbers, the facts, the figures, and they're not lying. Simply Safe is the only choice for your family's safety. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe Home Security to protect their home, and you're not earning the trust of that many people without doing a lot of things right. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. They're protecting you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have got your back. So customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes right now at simplysafe.com/LockedOnCollege. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnCollege. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Free, free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more, because there's no safe like Simply Safe. And also our good friends, your good friends, every Red Raiders friend, the good people at Jay's Salsa Company, ready for your order at jsalsacompany.com, where they are shipping out that Red Raider family recipe, 20 years in the making, nationwide. Or Chris, those lucky enough in Texas or New Mexico, they can find it on a grocery store shelf in over 90 stores. And you and I are both big fans of that beautiful red and black jar.
Yeah, man, hot, mild, buy one of each, cocktail them together, man, get after it. You can order it online, jsalsacompany.com. And I find out that there's a lot of people talking about this on RedRaidersports.com, a lot of hubbub because of what we're talking about here on Locked On Texas Tech. So it's just kind of spilling over on the forums there at RedRaidersports.com. But, yeah, they've been shipping it out. I think we're at 12 or so different states other than the state of Texas that this thing has been shipped out to, these products. So but buy the jars, man. The holidays are coming up, man, and it's always a good day for chips and salsa, man.
From the Florida Keys to Anchorage, Alaska, we won't stop. We can't stop. Hot, mild, whatever your preference is, or if you want to go Frankenstein and get crossfaded, like Chris said there, just make it a salsa cocktail, baby. And you know it's coming from the heart because I take my salsa seriously. In this house, we will praise, good salsa. And so that's why we're down with Jay's Salsa Company. Over 90 stores in Texas or New Mexico, most United supermarkets, Albertsons supermarkets, or Market Street. Or if you're blessed by God to be in the 806 or can get there, you can find it at HEB in Lubbock or shipping anywhere in the USA right now at jsalsacompany.com. Thanks for joining us today on Locked On Texas Tech, where it's your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Don't miss anything. Bonus episodes just out there in the ether right now. You never know when they're descending from upon high into your YouTube feed. But if you're subscribed, you'll know as soon as it happens. So make that happen there on YouTube, or check us out anywhere you get podcasts. We are back to Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire and some thoughts as he kicks off the week that the Baylor Bears are coming to town. Setting his sights now on a medical report that's looking a lot rosier, Chris, within that quarterback room at long last. It seems like at least maybe they'll have the option of utilizing 3 guys, however they may see fit. For starters, that's great news pertaining to QB1, who is Behren Morton. But also happy to hear that for Donovan Smith and Tyler Shuck as well. And Coach McGuire was asked about what does, in general, a healthy quarterback room do for your team now that obviously it hasn't had the chance to do for so many weeks prior?
I think it allows you to continually be even more aggressive, because whoever's in there, we know they're going to be able to get the job done, and I think they drive each other. I promise you, when we go to practice tomorrow, Tyler Shuck will have a chip on his shoulder, of not being able to play. So he'll bring even more intensity to that room, and that's good. They're going against each other, but in a different way. It's not like an offensive defense, iron sharpens iron, But I think there's a level of preparation and competition in this program that helps guys stay focused, and I definitely think they'll be focused and ready to go.
This is going to be it's going to be kind of wild, man, to follow this, just because I don't know if we've ever, because we would agree, Casey, that these 3 kids are pretty good. Yes. Yeah. I mean, this isn't some, I don't view really any of them as like some pure backup. They've all started games. They've all, played really well at times. They've all kind of, I guess at times not, had some moments and this and that, but none of them would ever go, God, he's terrible, don't put him out there.
They're Power 5 starters to me, bona fide
Absolutely.
Power 5 starters.
All 3 of them, yes. And so what you have is that what I hear Joey saying by being more aggressive is we can now maybe do a few more things with them, maybe in the QB run game, and not try to protect them as much or be worried that, oh God, we don't want to do that, they may get dinged up, because you have all 3 of them healthy. I think that's kind of part of where he's coming from. I do think too, pushing each other. This is, none of us will know. I don't know the dynamics. I'm not going to be there all the time and be able to see it play out. But if you're over there and you do get the nod, you can't really have an off day, during a practice.
True.
You can't have a day to where you don't really have it, or you bust some assignments, or you just kind of don't have a grasp of the game, whatever it may be. I also hope that doesn't, because here's the potential negative, is I hope that whoever does get the nod isn't, pressing or fearful of looking over his shoulder if they make a mistake, because you don't want somebody playing that way. Whoever does, play, and I do, just so I'm clear, I think that Behren Morton starts this week. I'm not going to change my mind there unless I, get some different feel or vibe or whatever. But I just think that that's what's going to happen. But he needs to be able to play through a mistake or two. That's just kind of how this thing goes. But that part right there is going to be fascinating in the psychology of this thing, and I don't know whether we're privy to a lot of that, or in body language and just kind of long leash, quick leash. I don't know. I don't know what to really expect here, because this is kind of uncharted territory. It's just tricky for an OC and a head coach to kind of maneuver your way through the situation now that you're here. When you have the portal, you have the immediacy of trying to win a game right now. You have the psychology of letting the guy know, hey, man, don't press. Like, play. And if you make a mistake, it's going to be okay, man. You're not going to get yanked. I just don't know what the dynamics will be.
Don't you feel like if you were in the headset, I think Behren Morton, if I was in the headset, has earned as long of a leash as any quarterback would ever have. Just through a couple of games. It's not like he's untouchable, but I think he would be trusted in most moments, don't you?
Yeah, I think even everybody that's got a long leash still has a moment in a.
Right.
Let's just. I don't even want to get into like
Graham
examples.
Harrell, arguably greatest Texas Tech quarterback ever.
Yeah, and like I saw it happen to Cliff too when B.J. Simmons got got Clemson did it this past weekend.
Part of being a quarterback, man.
Yeah, that's right. And so if you just kind of don't have it, you just that's the flip side is you just know there's a couple of guys over there that can do it, and maybe one of them doesn't have it, but let's spin the wheel here. So you just can't make a habit of that. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. Hopefully it makes everybody better. Hopefully somebody takes it, runs with it, stays healthy, and we never look back. And then you let the chips fall where they may. But I'd just be willing to bet odds are we're going to get some hiccups with some of this stuff in the coming weeks, whether it's Saturday or the following Saturday or on into November. That's just kind of what we've been dealing with.
I'm thinking now about like so many hiccups that were, I guess, just swallowed and tolerated. I hate to use that word, but
doesn't that make you burp?
Haven't we seen like very minimal from Behren Morton in that category? So how much more does he have to go? Because like I know he's missed some passes, but like the debilitating, crippling mistake. Has he even made one of those? I don't know, but
he had the one on his end of the field in Stillwater. We didn't see that versus West Virginia. And I don't know. And again, that's part of too is we won't ultimately know if some mistakes are made. Is it on him? Is it on the wideout? Did Zach feel like he called the wrong play, or was somebody miss a signal? Who knows what? We won't be privy to that in real time because I think Behren has learned that if he gets rid of the ball quick and if he avoids mistakes, he can probably play this position here for as long as he wants to. But it's also he does get out of the pocket some, and and if he comes gimpy a bit, I'd be willing to bet now knowing what we know, if you have the same scenario in Stillwater where he comes down and he's just not quite the same player and he's kind of limping around and everything, I bet now that's enough to say, hey man, we're putting a healthy body out there.
Roll the next one. Yeah, I agree. And why not? Why not? For as much as I love, obviously, what Behren Morton has done so far, and I do, it's kind of a weird sentence to even be rolling around in my head, but I keep thinking, well, I kind of want to let the guy make some mistakes because that's part of growing. That's kind of part of growing as a quarterback as well. So yanking at the first sign of distress, that's not how they handled Donovan Smith, obviously. And
I don't think they will. But I mean, there's a different dynamic now because in some of these options, there was no other option. We got to let them play, but now you do have these options standing over there going, hey man, I wouldn't have made that throw. Hey man, whatever it may be. But anyway, it's just kind of it's an interesting dynamic, man. We're going to be dealing with this until Thanksgiving, I bet.
Well, and you mentioned the dynamic of it all. I'd like to allow the listeners, because I think it is up to some interpretation here. Take a listen to Joey McGuire as he does actually kind of describe the dynamics. Is a competition ongoing? Does that mean it's open? And see maybe how you feel about the interpretation of this thought.
Even whenever you name a quarterback, I think there's definitely, when you have a quarterback room like we have, you always want the competition. You never want anybody to get complacent or just set, and not like to where they can't go out and perform. It's tough. I think that when you have somebody that's injured that won the job, without any doubt, you definitely have to open it up because, him breaking his collarbone didn't do anything. That wasn't his fault other than it happened, And so I think we open it up, but when we come in Saturday, we're planning on playing all three of them. And then we're planning on whoever gives us the best chance to win that game against Baylor is going to be the guy that starts the game.
Wally Pip agrees.
Yeah. I know.
So interesting, man. And I really think it's just, what do your ears hear? I mean, because everybody could have a slightly different bent on what all that means.
Yeah, I'm with you. You try to parse words and try to kind of get, but I do think if you see all three played or playing, that's on the field at the same time. I don't think that they're into rotating series or, hey, I've seen it done a million ways. I hate all of it. I think you got to have a guy and roll. And if you want to make a change or if you want to hey, man, it's not your day-to-day, this doesn't mean you're losing your job, but hey, man, we're going to let somebody else go out there and do their thing too. But it's just going to be interesting to follow now that all three are in uniform and I think cleared and ready to go and all fairly healthy. Your guess
he
is
uses the word opening. He uses the word opening, and I know that Coach McGuire's just up there chewing the cud with us. So again, not fact checking every syllable for the strictest definition of everything, right? But he used the word. Comes back from injury, won the job, and he either used definitively or decisively. I think talking about winning the job in the preseason, which is interesting. So it's entertaining for guys like us, right? And I'd say enjoy the ride right now because you've got some good options, including a freshman who seems like a guy that may be tough to dethrone if he can stay healthy, Chris. But, hey, you got a veteran defense, as we will hear from Coach McGuire this week, that you're going to be facing particularly up front. And so there's a lot of football left to be played and a lot of snaps to survive for anybody on the field. I want to get back to something that you touched on there briefly before we wrap up the program, talking about some things that maybe Behren Morton is learning along the way. I'm talking about, well, do you kind of want to let a guy make some mistakes because that's part of the progress? And we'll get into some of that area as Coach McGuire talked about critiques for his freshman quarterback after 2 starts. We will get into that coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, our friends at LinkedIn Jobs standing by to put you in touch faster than anyone with the right candidates to make your business successful. You're gearing up the team for the fall, just like Joey McGuire and the good guys. And right now, you can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools, easy to use, screening questions, things like that make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skill set and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So get that help today by posting your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. With LinkedIn Jobs, terms and conditions apply. You got Locked On Texas Tech, LOTT for your ear hole. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Red Raiders and Bears will be an increasing topic of conversation as we get set for this matchup coming up Saturday night from the Jones. So we'll continue to turn our sights there as we roll through the week. I want to get into something coming up tomorrow with some thoughts from Coach McGuire that I think is a really interesting part of this offensive conversation for Tech, Chris, as it involves not only tempo, but tempo maybe aiding in some better days for the offensive line as we've gone through the season and now gotten into the second half. So join us tomorrow once again on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts as we'll get into that conversation and much, much more as we get ready for Tech and Baylor. But first, back to Coach McGuire and back to a quarterback conversation. This revolving specifically about the guy that we expect to be QB1, should be QB1. I don't think it has to be that complicated of a conversation as you roll into 6:30 at least Saturday night. 2 starts in his rear view, home and away. He's looked pretty effective. Offense certainly has moved a little bit differently with Behren Morton on the field, but obviously a long way to go as he's just setting out on this journey of self-discovery and progress as a Big 12 quarterback. Coach McGuire was asked about critiques for the freshman QB after 2 starts.
He'll be the first one to tell you we missed 3 wide open touchdowns. So either, getting to his second or third read faster when that first read's not there, or the first read. I mean, there were 3 that and one we didn't score on. I think we ended up kicking a field goal. So I think that's a big thing. I think the biggest thing that he did that progressed that we got to continue to do is throw the ball away when something's not there. Because the big difference on Saturday is we only had 5 negative plays. I mean, against North Carolina State, we were in second and 10 plus 17 times. Against Oklahoma State, we were in second and 10 plus 15 times. So, I thought that was a big part of him keeping us. I mean, even if it's second and 9 or second and 8, keeping us in plays that were not a lot of negative plays, and that's going to be big this week because they're a high-pressure defense, so keeping us, ahead of the chains, or even if it's, where we got to go 9 yards versus 10, 12, 13, it's a big difference. So I thought he really did a good job there.
What struck you funny there?
You were in those games somehow.
I know. Yeah.
I don't know if he's actually quoting a number or just being a little.
No, if you go back and look, there's ways to pull some of that stuff up.
You were in those games. It just speaks to some of the other good things you've been doing while also like kneecapping yourself every now and then.
I can't remember which play that it was. I distinctly remember one throw that Behren missed, and it would have been a touchdown if he drops it in there. He overthrew it. It was a deep shot, and after it was over, he was very frustrated and kind of talking to himself, and like you could just tell he was visibly frustrated because I mean that was one of those, and that was when the game was very much still in question, and you just don't know how many times you're going to get those chances. It turned out it was not that big a deal, but that's what he's learned. I mean, the most impressive thing that I think he did this past Saturday versus West Virginia was just kind of getting flushed out of the pocket and throwing it into the stands, throwing it on the sideline. I mean, I'm totally okay with that. It feels real empty at the time. It feels like kind of frustrating a bit, but I mean, if you sit back there and try to force it, I mean, and something bad happens, imagine how you feel then. So I'm okay with him living the fight. Again, we've talked about this a million times. Any drive that ends in a kick, man, is okay. Whether that's Austin McNamara or Trey Wolf, kicking an extra point or a field goal or Austin McNamara out there punting, you just don't want to immediately have to send your defense out there because you try to force something in there. But again, so avoiding the turnovers, but also avoiding negative plays. He's got enough athleticism, and for some reason, people kind of assume that he's not really athletic or that they were surprised. That's bizarre to me. He's a very good athlete. He's absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah. It's he absolutely is not somebody that I would consider like a dual threat, but he's not necessarily, because there's two types of quarterbacks typically, ones that run to extend the play and ones that run to run. I don't think I'm kind of uncomfortable putting him in either category because he's not running to run like an Adrian Martinez type, but he's also not necessarily running to extend the play either. He only runs kind of when needed, and then he's going to get positive yards and he's going to slide. He did that repeatedly to West Virginia, and it's extremely frustrating as a defense to try to deal with some of that.
We will all be enjoying the company Saturday night, Chris, for my money's worth, and I feel certain about this, of the quarterback who was the greatest ever and presently still is, extending the play in an intelligent way, positive yardage. And it's not about necessarily running to run. It's just about extending the play. I was trying to think, Joe Montana, I'm listening to talk about Patrick Mahomes. And he's saying, yeah, he can move.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Knows what he's looking at, right? And I think it was post game. I don't know, maybe pre. Either way, he didn't look too down in the dumps, so it had to be before the 49ers got waxed. Hey, but he said, yeah, he'll run, but he doesn't. That's not what he wants to do. He enjoys so much driving the football and delivering the football down the field. And I remember when Patrick Mahomes first hit the field at Texas Tech, it's like, oh yeah, he's scrambling around, and that's cool. But he's keeping his eyes down the field. And not only that, he's doing smart things like on the other end. It was almost just like his ability to process things on the fly is just as amazing as that howitzer hanging off of his shoulder. And am I talking about Patrick Mahomes or am I talking about No, I'm not going to go that far just yet. Not going to go that far just yet. But I'm sure you recall exactly what I'm talking about, Chris. There were some wild, he scrambled and made a play down the field, but sometimes it was just as important the plays he chose not to risk trying to make down the field in those moments. And I've only seen one guy do it as often and as successfully as Patrick Mahomes. That's Patrick Mahomes. He's the guy that to me is the best I've ever seen when the ish hits the fan. of turning chicken spit into chicken soup. And I feel like that's why Texas Tech University was a godsend for Patrick Mahomes. What do you want to get behind a good offensive line at Alabama and not show that off? You needed 3rd and 12. You needed us.
Yeah, it's a great
because
point,
that highlight
man.
reel was amazing.
Yep, it's a great point. You know,
the IQ, man, the IQ.
And I think there are. It's funny because you stopped short there, but the comparisons between like Pat and Behren. There's some real ones, like tangible ones, and I think you can see the baseball player in both of them too.
Yeah,
because of the different arm angles. Because Behren is kind of it's kind of unorthodox. It doesn't look, like Aaron Rodgers. We'd all agree, or Tom Brady. I mean, they throw the ball perfect. I mean, the form is right. These guys, the arm angle drops, or they kind of underhanded, or they kind of flip it, or it's just a bit different. It's not necessarily the way you would want to teach a young person, hey, here's the perfect way to throw a football. No, they're just kind of playing. And so I think those comparisons are valid. And, because who Beren's mentor is Cody Hodges. I mean, that's who his real life mentor is right now.
Really?
He would tell you.
Where's that connection established? Is that a camp thing or
that was an aired out camps? I think that's been, and it's been like that it's not something new. I think these two have known each other for, I want to say 10-ish years. I mean, this goes way back, and I think
a bad Cody, guy to
not at all.
Some consult every now and then.
Absolutely not. I mean, Cody is one of the best people you'll ever come across, and he played really good football here too. That was that 9-win team back in 2005, I guess it was, and you played Bama in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah,
Cody
we're the one that's been cheated.
Yeah.
Ike Clanton all over that one again.
That's right. But I like the tombstone reference. That's good. That's right. That's right.
Knees down.
Give me my guns.
Mike Shula.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
I know. Well, I can still remember the kid that torpedoed that kick through the uprights. It was just like it had been shot several times, but it still went through the uprights.
Entirely, Chris.
Yeah, Jamie Christensen. I do like Beren's kind of unorthodox, kind of outside the box way of playing it at times when it's needed, because he doesn't force it. It's just kind of what he's just playing ball, and I think baseball, you have to, if you're playing infield, there's a variety. You field it differently, and you got to underhand it. You got to come over the top. There's all different ways you kind of do it, and I think there's some of that in both of their games. So I think that's valid, and they'll both be in the house on Saturday too.
Man, that should be a lot of fun. And I'll give you one more Joe Montana perspective before I get out of here, because he also said in that he was just visiting with the media and also touched on at one point that basically Patrick Mahomes does everything that you coach a quarterback not to do. He's talking about off your back foot, against your mo. And it just reminded me of the thought that we are, as sports fans, living kind of a wild time right now, watching Steph Curry and Patrick Mahomes ruin basketball and football players across America who do not have this one-of-a-kind talent, right? Because it just reminded me of Curry. Like, what part of his game are you telling an up-and-comer, model yourself after this? Aside from the 99% free throw shooting, I'll definitely do that. But you know what I'm saying? And there are quarterbacks out there like, I'll get out there and do it like Patrick Mahomes. Well, good luck, buddy, because it's one of a kind that's doing that kind of stuff, man. And who knows what the path is like for Morton or any other quarterback. But I like at least that description or that comparison to settle on, Chris, because you can't avoid that. Some of the baseball-esque arm talent that you see from both of these guys, definitely similar. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that's not putting too much on Behren Morton.
No, it's not. But I mean, it's valid. I mean, it's just because I don't think Donovan or Tyler or really nobody else that I've seen kind of come through here since Pat really does that, where you drop the arm down and you just kind of, because if you watch him on some of those screenplays, his arm will drop way down and he's trying to get it under or away from the defensive end that may kind of bat it down, or he's just trying to get it around the edge of things. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of fascinating to watch. And it was just normal when Pat was here. It was normal here. It's funny too, because you mentioned like guys that were watching play, like Josh Allen and Luka Doncic are two others like in football and pro basketball that are like, they're so different. I mean, the Buffalo QB is like built like a tight end. And he's running over people. You can throw it through a brick wall. I mean, like, dude, this is nuts, man. But it's fun to watch those kinds of generational talents, is what those people are, because you just don't see the packaged goods look like that. And we've never really seen it with some of those guys we've just mentioned. But yeah, I'm not teaching a kid to pull up 6 feet behind the 3-point line. But for Steph Curry, that's a good shot. But I'm like, no,
eternal green light, man.
Run the offense.
Green light.
Run the offense.
Yeah.
Run our stuff.
Flex.
Yeah. Set a screen.
Word to Chuck Darden. Let's get some flex going. Motion. Cut. Baseline. Back screen. Other basketball terms. Wait.
Yes.
We'll get into that coming up. We're 2 weeks away from Red Raider Hoops, by the way. But that is
2
a
weeks
conversation.
ago, 2 weeks from yesterday is when that first game will happen.
We're within 2 weeks of Red Raider basketball. Let me amend that. And certainly we'll begin to switch some gears there and get ready. But, man, we got a big one to get ready for on the gridiron. The remainder of the week, as it is the Red Raiders and Baylor Bears coming up Saturday night. Thanks for joining us today on Locked On Texas Tech. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, and be back here tomorrow for a new episode, bringing one your way each weekday. But never miss out on a bonus episode by subscribing and turning those notifications on so you know when a new show is dropping. Always love being your first listen right here on Locked On Texas Tech as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hope you'll make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and a take of the day. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. For the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, Chris, for the time. As always, enjoyed it, my man.
Yes, sir. Keep hope alive, people.
You got it. And be back here for another edition tomorrow of Locked On Texas Tech.